one.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our April 13th regular council meeting. It is the 141st annual council meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. So if all of council could take a look at the agenda, is there anything that needs to be added? Seeing none, can I have somebody approve the agenda as it is presented? Councillor Bork, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Glenn Digdon. I appreciate it. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Conflict of interest declaration. Does anybody have a conflict of interest they'd like to declare? And again, you can declare it later on if necessary. Okay, seeing none, we will move on. We have a presentation. We're going to start with a presentation tonight. We have Paul Dantero from the Société historique acadienne de Pubnico-Ouest. So Paul, the floor is yours.
Alors, bonsoir, Madame la sous-ministre, mais la sous-préfète, et tous les conseillers. Et je crois que la présentation ce soir, c'est presque la même, modifiée de ceux de vous autres. Vous étiez presque tous là, sauf les nouveaux conseillers, Ted Saunier et puis Gordon Boudreau. Bienvenue au conseil. Et puis, les autres ont vu la présentation, entendu la présentation lorsqu'on en a fait une 3 ans passés. Alors, je vais aller dans les deux langues. Je vais aller de français à l'anglais. Alors, je dis 3 ans passés, nous n'avons pas une présentation qui est à une demande financière à laquelle vous avez répondu oui pour une durée de 2 ans et à temps partiel. Et before I go any further, I wish to acknowledge and say thank you for that participation, for that contribution over the past 2 years. Alors, la Société historique, on veut vous présenter qui nous sommes, et vous savez que nous sommes une des 2 sociétés historiques de la municipalité d'Argyle, celle qui est associée avec le musée, oui, Argyle, voyons, je peux y penser au nom, là, Argyle Township, et nous autres à Pubnico avec la Société historique acadienne. Ensuite, que nous avons, comme société historique, nous avons un musée et un centre de recherche. Et avec le centre de recherche, on a aussi le musée et le centre de recherche, oui, pour les visiteurs et les gens de la communauté, une boutique, un gift shop, alors qui est là. Et la Société historique existe depuis 1973. Okay. Now, the Society's mission and mandate are to preserve and exhibit the wealth of historical and cultural information in our facility for the benefit of the community, of all community members, researchers, and friends. And as the years progress, we continue to receive documents, articles, and so forth for the Research Center and the museum from throughout our municipality, and also from people who are related to these communities and wish to see that those things be preserved, and we continue to receive. On page 2, the services that we provide. For les archives, naturally, it is with emphasis on Acadian genealogy and history, because we are, as we all know, in this area, la Baronnie de Pubnico, and in the Pubnicos and the district of Argyle, we are the oldest Acadian community that dates pre-deportation, and the only Acadian community that is still occupied and still inhabited by the descendants of the founding fathers. So this is unique. The only community, Acadian community in Atlantic Canada, or in Canada, that can say that. Okay. So our archives started off with, as it says in the 3rd paragraph on that one, le Centre de Recherche Pierre Clarence d'Outremont. That's how we started with the Acadian Society, the Historical Society in 1973, and then later on with the acquisition of buying a house and developing the museum. The archival holdings include over 6,000 books, maps, photographs in original state and in microfiche documents, as well as the founding content of the region's historic French language newspaper, Le Petit Courrier. Okay, all of these archival includes, for all of these archival, we also have on our facility a vault and a climate control storage, allowing us to house our archival documents and artifacts in our own buildings, in our own municipality, without having to send them to Nova Scotia Museum, for example. Okay. The second component of the services, et la deuxième partie, c'est la généalogie. On voit au bas de la page 2, at the bottom of page 2, the genealogy. Okay. With the help of volunteers, we created and we manage a genealogy database, which includes, as of March 18th, a month ago, over 110,000 family names linked. We also print individual family genealogy booklets, priced per number of pages. We have and continue to do the research on the Métis status of individuals upon request. And we are not only within our own municipality, but from other parts of our province, if these people see that there is a link to La Baronnie de Punku or to the district of Argyle. And as an interesting thing in genealogy, with COVID, our volunteers decided to try something on this year, is genealogy online through Zoom. This was going to be a six-week session, well, every 2 weeks, and the interest is there, and it is ongoing, and it will keep going for a little while longer.
Today was interesting.
And today was even more interesting in, excuse me, to the fact that one of the participants is a Trahan with links to the Amiro family in our municipality. Monsieur Trahan is a teacher in Revere, Massachusetts, and he, participating today, also had 6 students.
He teaches
with him.
Genealogy.
Because he's teaching genealogy. And these people naturally are not first generation or second generation Acadians, and some are not even related to the Acadian communities. However, in with discussion with them, one of the students, our genealogist who was online with them today, found out that she has a link to Forbes Point in Shelburne County. Relatives, her distant relatives, great-grandparents were from Forbes Point. So, and with our people participating on that, we've had throughout Atlantic Canada, Manitoba, Ontario, Alberta, and BC, throughout Canada. We've had quite a few people from the US and so forth. So it's interesting that people show the interest, and if they have an Acadian link, they do so, okay? So that was interesting on that one. If we go back, Alain or Laurie, who was doing that, you see on top of page 3, for the database, okay, with 110,000 plus, and the amount of space or the file size. And this is quite unique, and those people who are used to working with genealogy and who have been in contact with our people here said it is unique and fairly huge. We can't compare to the Church of Latter-day Saints in the US because they are the biggest ones. Following that, on voit plus loin, dessous cela, les livres. Okay? Ce que nous avons publié. Okay? Un premier livre qui s'appelle Les 5 générations des descendants de Jacques Mius d'Entremont et de Marguerite Amiro. Deuxièmement, il y en a un qui est en train d'être produit, c'est les 5 générations des descendants de Abel Dumont, qu'on appelle Tibel, et de Anne-Marie Mius. Celui-là n'est pas encore imprimé, et ça va être une question, est-ce que ça peut se permettre de le faire? Mais vous voyez que dans ce deuxième ligne-là, que si on l'imprimait, ça fera environ 615 pages. Et ensuite, ils sont en train de travailler les 5 générations des descendants de François Amiro. Okay? Celui-là est en progrès. But please note on that one that although these 3 books through those 3 books, the genealogy information of a strong Acadian families in our municipality, throughout the municipality can be found and printed upon request, whether you be a Dantero, a Dumont, a Déon, Amiro, Béliveau, Blanchard, Surette, Landry, Potier, Muse, De Villers, Melançon, Thibault, etc. Okay? Alors qu'on trouve des liens de tout. Et c'est de là, j'ai déjà été plus loin, déjà parlé de Zoom. Okay? After that, we also provide services as per special request. Okay. Over the past few months, interested parties meet every 2 weeks, from, as I said, to undertake the genealogical research. Oh, no, that's not the one that's following. Special request. Sorry. We serve an ever-increasing number of unique genealogy requests for information through the internet or telephone, both from the general public and specialty groups such as the Métis Council, funeral service providers. We also have repeat customers who do additional research and or complement previous information content. Also, un point important, c'est que de plus en plus, on reçoit des informations, des demandes d'informations de d'autres municipalités, des communautés acadiennes à travers les provinces atlantiques.
Cabreton, c'en est un.
Oui, oui. OK, le musée, le musée, if you go down à l'un, to a little bit further, in summary, okay, in summary, with the musée, it's creativity, innovation, and economic growth. I already spoke about our gift and quilt shop to promote the sales of locally fabricated quilts and arts. And today, with online buying and so forth, we have opened through Etsy, of where people can order through the gift shop, through books, through all of our products and so forth, and that is available. And as a matter of fact, even today, there was an order for genealogy information, which has been printed and will be naturally sent out by email. Or by email. And depending on the amount of pages, but also by Canada Post. Also, the cultural diversity and the cultural stewardship. Okay. Au début, j'ai parlé de ce que de la reconnaissance du financement que l'on avait reçu, et vous voyez que ça dit ensuite accomplishments of the past 2 years with the funding received. De l'argent que l'on a reçu, on a pu embaucher une personne pendant 2 ans, à 2 jours par semaine, et de tout se fait selon le processus au niveau des archives de RAD. RAD, c'est Rules of Archival Description, la même chose qu'il y a dans le musée et dans le centre Atasket, et ainsi qu'ici. Okay. Et ce qui a été à la page suivante, cette personne, pendant les 2 ans, a pu travailler les fonds qui sont listés là-dedans. Le fonds Roselyne Leblanc, le fonds de Père Melvin Surette, le fonds de Isabelle Austin d'Entremont, Lucie et Captain Wallace d'Entremont, il y avait Claire et Réginald d'Entremont, et France Amiro de East Pubnico History and Community Events, et ensuite the Leblanc family of the East Pubnico Fund. Those are the funds that have been completed over the past 2 years with this part-time employment. Also, all of these funds are now available to the public at our research center and archives, also on the website and through the provincial Memory Nova Scotia website. Parce que de plus en plus, avec le Memory Nova Scotia website, c'est là qu'on trouve tout ce qui est disponible au niveau d'archives, qui est archivé selon le RAD et qui est disponible en ligne. Okay. Ensuite, it says funds and other tasks to be accomplished. Okay. The following are some of the acquired funds to be processed as per the RAD archival guidelines. And these are they're huge funds. Lots of pages, lots of papers, lots of books, lots of documents. le 350e anniversaire de la baronnie de Bourbon-Coufon. Okay. Le fonds de l'Association des Dantero et d'Ayon de 2004, ça va faire lieu dans le temps du congrès de 2004, Congrès mondial acadien, et ainsi que le fonds de Pauline et Viateur d'Entremont, un fonds personnel et ensuite avec leur business oui, de SO. Et le fonds de plusieurs vétérans from the Pubnicos that we have acquired from families of these veterans. And more so, people are saying, okay, these have to be preserved, and they are asking us if we can acquire them, if we have the capacity to do so with the veterans for that. Other tasks to be accomplished, naturally, it's ongoing task that has happened in a museum and in archival centers. And it's the ongoing cataloging of acquisitions such as artifacts, written documents, short stories and diaries, photos. We have approximately 5,000 photos that need to be entered in the database. Approximately 400 books to be classified as per the Dewey Decimal System. Le Courrier de la Nouvelle-Écosse is an ongoing cataloging. We continually receive historical reviews, bulletins, magazines, etc. Also, the ongoing updating of the museum and archives website. Also, funding applications through the different provincial and federal programs for museum and archives. And that is time-consuming, naturally. And we are already have received confirmed it is now being announced through the student employment programs, provincial and federal. And even today was officially announced, I guess, that we managed to receive, I believe it's around $19,000 through the museum, the Canada Seniors Program to repair the roof on our archival section of the building. So, okay. And all of these funds are to be made available to the public, as I said earlier, on the Research Center and Archives website and on the Memory Nova Scotia website. And naturally, there's the ongoing updating of the genealogy data. And also to provide the assistance to the clients in person and online. And naturally, not only due to COVID, but with today's ways of operating, et de plus en plus, les demandes nous arrivent via l'Internet, par courriel, par correspondance, et par téléphone. Okay? The big world that we live in becomes a small world when we are dealing with the social medias and through the medias. So today, our request that we are presenting to you, ladies and gentlemen, is a proposal for an annual contribution from the municipality of the District of Argyll for a part-time archivist, that is 3% of the week or 3 days per week. Salary, pending qualifications, certified or on-the-job training at $15 per hour, 3 days per week, 52 weeks per year, plus the MERT contribution would come to a total of $18,252, plus $800 per year for supplies for the research center, specifically for acid-free folders, archival boxes, and acid-free paper. Okay. Please be reminded that we greatly appreciate the yearly contribution that we also receive from the municipality as a not-for-profit organization for smaller projects, and these are always appreciated. So I'm sure that all the organizations throughout our municipality do appreciate. It is also understood that the Société would maintain responsibility of ownership and operation for its facilities. Attached, you will find our financial report, 2020 financial report. It is unaudited because it's presently will be in our accountant's office being worked upon. This is another feature that we need to do and have it audited and an official report, because when applying for funding through different government departments and so forth, they always require an audited report. Alors voilà, monsieur, madame, qu'il y a des questions.
Merci beaucoup. Merci pour la présentation très informative. we are going to open this up to councillors. Are there any councillors who have any questions or any comments for Monsieur Dantero? Councillor Bourque.
Oui, merci. Merci Paul pour la présentation. Je voulais savoir si que vous disiez vous travaillez sur un livre pour comme les 5 générations des amiraux, François Amiraux, puis il y en avait un autre livre aussi. Puis je voulais savoir si que ces livres-là vont être prêts pour le 2024.
Je vais laisser Bernice répondre. Bernice Dantero est avec moi. Alors,
oui, le livre, ça qu'on veut faire, les livres, c'est pas la difficulté de les mettre ou les mettre ensemble. Le logiciel peut faire ces choses-là. La difficulté est toujours d'avoir du financement qui va pouvoir nous laisser publier. Notre premier livre, on avait déjà du financement en place que les faits de 2004, les Dantero avaient donné cet argent-là. Ça fait, on a encore à garder pour des différents projets qui vont nous laisser un peu d'argent pour publier. Puis ensuite, on va faire comme tous les autres fois, on va vendre en avance toutes ces choses-là et des prélèvements de fonds. Ça fait juste à cette heure, la majorité des choses, comme pour le patrimoine, ne nous laisse pas publier un livre.
Merci.
Ça, non, le financement pour le patrimoine n'est pas pour un livre. C'est pour autre chose, mais pas la publication d'un livre. Ça fait peut-être avant le Congrès mondial, qui va avoir des places où qu'on peut aller chercher un peu de financement pour ces livres-là avant le Congrès mondial, oui.
OK, merci.
On sait déjà quand même, Mme Bourque, on sait déjà aussi qu'il y a des gens qui sont en train de travailler, des gens dans nos communautés qui sont en train de travailler et garder pour commencer à mettre des choses ensemble et travailler pour envers les livres et les ressources qu'on peut avoir, surtout pour la généalogie.
Oui.
Merci. Other questions, comments, Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. Very nice report there, Paul. I often go up and use the information that they have up at the museum. When I'm dealing with families, I even come up with information that even sure of or did not know. I know with Congrès Mondial coming up in 2024, I believe there's going to be a lot of activity going on between now and then up around the museum. Just wondering, Paul, if this is a one-year ask that you're looking for, or what is your plan on that one? I believe the last time was a couple of years that we had.
The last year plan, 3 years ago, we have asked for 3 years as a project. At that time, the allocation was 2 years and 2 days per week versus 3. And even though we don't have that written, but verbally was stated and to be reevaluated at the end of the project if you choose to come back and present presentation. So what we are asking here naturally is a repeat of 3 years ago. The first year, I guess we were too late in the time before we managed for you to schedule us to come in and make the presentation. So we didn't make the budget 3 years ago. So we did in the past 2 years. So the present request is again for continuation of this, but again, we go back to the 3 days per week and ongoing, okay?
I thank you very much. I just felt as though I should ask that and clarify it for some of our new councillors or for some of the people that may be watching here this evening. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment or have a question on the presentation? Okay, seeing none. So, Mr. Dantero, the way the next step will be, you're right, you came at the right time because we haven't started budget deliberations yet. That's coming up very soon. So this is one of the requests that we will bring forward when it comes time for budget deliberations.
If I may, Madame Nicole?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Also, you are aware because you are aware, and because the CAO is involved with that with us. on working, and you have contributed a few some money towards an ongoing a research project or a study that is being presently conducted with conjunction with the musée and the village on bringing this into one institution, also, and to be recognized by the province as that. And one of the arguments that we are using, and I use that in the beginning of our presentation, of where we are the only communities in the Pubnicos, and it includes all of our municipality, of pre-deportation and still inhabited by the descendants of the founding communities with La Baronnie de Pumgoncourt, starting in 1651, but officially 1653. So that is one point that we are working on, and we acknowledge that, the contribution that the municipality has done on that. And I understand that our consultants working on that part of the project should be submitting, well, they have to submit before the end of May, but they are working with Mr. Moose on the financial aspect of that. Okay. So that is one wish. We know that right now with the COVID situation and in provincial politics and provincial budgets, culture is probably not the most important dossier, and it's understandably so, whether we're looking at it provincially or federally. But the project that we are talking about is not for tomorrow. It is naturally something that will take a number of years. We say maybe two, up to two. You never know when dealing with governments. You're not used to that, are you? Working with provincial and federal governments, you never know what's going to happen. And but that's what we're working on, and we appreciate the municipal contribution financially and in presence and in helping us with that one also.
Okay. Thank you.
We are an Acadian community, and we want to make it such and stay as such.
Right. Good. Okay. Seeing no one else, merci.
Merci
Thank
beaucoup.
you very much.
Okay. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Okay. We are going to move to our next item on the agenda. Our next item is adoption of minutes. So we have the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting, March 30th. Do we have somebody who is willing to move those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Surratt, and Councillor Donaldson seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. So the next we have business arising from the minutes. There is nothing new to report there. Number 6, we have the appointments. We have the appointments of our auditors and our solicitors and our officers. Oh, sorry, Councillor Digdon, did you have something you wanted to
add? Thank you. Just, and it won't have been these minutes, but I'd like to ask a question possibly to our CAO, the EMC, concerning ambulance response times down in this area and paramedic staffing of the base, or did we ever get a reply from that?
We had correspondence. I remember the last agenda, there was correspondence that had come from that, and it was from our MLA Colton LeBlanc. And basically he sent us a letter saying they have told us that when they have that report prepared, they will submit it to us with those response times. We haven't received anything yet that I know of, but that is supposed to come. Does that answer your question, Councillor Digdon?
Okay, so I was wondering if we'd heard. Yeah, I was just wondering if we'd heard anything from the company itself, because
no,
the letter, I believe, went to the company.
Not that I know of. We're still kind of waiting for them, right? CAO Muse.
Yes, if any correspondence that we would have received on that matter was at the last meeting, and I believe that was a Colton LeBlanc response. Because
yes, it was.
Yeah, I'll double check to be sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next part is the appointment of auditors. And before we do this, because we do this every year, especially for the new councillors, we pass a motion to appoint our auditors and our solicitors and our officers. And I've never been in the position where I do this part. I just kind of vote for it. So I have a question for you, CAO Muse. How do we pick our auditors? How do we pick our solicitors? Because it seems to be the same names that come up every year. And I've been here for 2 terms and they're the same names. Do we go to market for that, or is that just something that just rolls over year after year?
Well, that's a good question. There's not a hard and fast rule around how this works. Some municipalities have policy to go to market once in a while.
Okay.
Not gone to market on the auditor or the solicitor since I've been here. Maybe once with the auditors, possibly, but certainly not with the solicitor. So you know, the advantage of going to market, of course, is to give other people an opportunity to bid the work, and you know, it you know, from the taxpayer dollar perspective, you know, you're doing due diligence. So it's not a bad idea to go to market from time to time and understand what that means. It's a little different for solicitors than it is for auditors, because solicitors are auditors are being tasked to do an audit, and it's a specific service, versus the solicitor, it's a bit more sporadic as to what you might expect the solicitor to do. Both can be brought to market, and if it's the will of council, certainly I can either investigate a policy or just go straight up and go to market. I don't need a policy to go to market, but some municipalities say, you know, as a rule, every 5 years we go out.
Okay. I was curious. I was just looking at it, and it seemed like it. I just had a question about that. Councillor Surratt.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Well, you brought that up, Nicole. Just want to add something in. I certainly would be in preference. This is just my personal feeling, that if we had somebody from the municipality, if at all possible, to give them a first choice. And I know what you mean. We're looking for the best bang for our buck, but we should also be looking in our municipality first. And just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Right. So is that something we are interested in doing, or do we just leave it our process as it has been? What do others think? I know I'm just kind of throwing that out there. It wasn't on the agenda. It just kind of came to me as a question. Councillor Surratt.
I'd like to move that we appoint the auditors, Grant Thornton. Right.
Do we have a seconder? Warden Muse. All those, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, raise your hand. Motion carried. Next, we have the appointment of our solicitors. Is there somebody willing to make? Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. I'll make the motion for the firm Dantero and Boudreau as solicitors for the municipality.
Thank you.
For the fiscal year 21-22.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Dantero, second. All those in favor, any questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, raise your hand. Motion carried. We have the appointment of officers. So we have a list of our fire wards, REMO coordinator, REMO assistant coordinator, building official, development officer, bylaw enforcement officers, fire inspector, dog control. Is there somebody willing to make a motion to pass these officers? Thank you, Councillor Bork. We have a seconder. We have Warden Muse. Any questions, concerns? Okay, Councillor Surratt.
Should those be named as we're appointing them, or would that not be required? Should question maybe for the CAO.
Should we name them, CAO Muse?
It doesn't hurt to name them.
Okay. So for our fire wards, it is chiefs, deputy chiefs for all 9 fire departments of the municipality or serving the municipality through mutual aid. Our REMO coordinator is Janine Muse. Our REMO assistant coordinator is Max Stuhlberger. Our building official, John Sullivan / Renee Jedry, as we make that transition. Development officer, Hans File. Bylaw enforcement officer, Hans File. Fire inspector, Tara Owen, and dog control, SPCA Nova Scotia. So we've had a motion and we've had a seconder. Are there any other questions or concerns? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, you can raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. We have our membership to NSFM and FCM that is to be renewed for 2021-2022. Do we have somebody who would entertain a motion for that? Councillor Surratt has moved to approve our membership, and Councillor Donaldson is our seconder. Any questions? Councillor Surratt? That's okay.
You know me, Nicole. Alain, do you know what the what we're paying? This is, I've never asked this question. Is it, I mean, not to the penny, but is it like $50 a year or $100 a year? Or
It's more than that.
It's more than that.
Tiny bit more, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's I have that information right in front of me. Just give me a moment here and I'll pull it up.
Sure.
The NSFM fees increased last year. And so the NSFM and FCM union dues together were $8,000. Yeah.
Okay.
Not $50.
Okay.
No.
Yep.
It is a significant investment, and one that as a board member, I can get into all sorts of details as to what the benefits are. It kind of feels a little bit weird for me to do it, but I am a board member of the NSFM as outgoing president of the AMA, and an example of the work that they do is they go after the province of Nova Scotia and federal government for funding, and they work on our behalf in that respect. So the Safe Restart funds, that would have been NSFM work. So that's the kind of projects that they do. We did recently have an NSFM caucus meeting or a meeting for the region. So that was at a time that wasn't convenient for many people, but I know that they'd be happy to send you any and all information around that. Yeah, so the FCM is obviously the national federation, and they certainly do the same as the NSFM, but they do it at the federal level. Yeah, so our fees are based on uniform assessment population. So that's how we share it across the province, and HRM is the biggest contributor in both cases.
Nicole, if you wouldn't mind, I could one more comment.
Absolutely.
Especially for the two new members.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Calvin Dartmouth having gone to FCM, and he came back, and he was able to steer our CAO to apply for the, Calvin, you can correct me on this, I think it was the plant in Pubnico, the sewer plant in Pubnico, that I think we might have got $500,000 or something like that, or Alain might have the better number. And that was by going to FCM. So many benefits. And on this new building, I believe, Alain, that we have $500,000 as a grant from FCM, the Green Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, $452,000 for the building and $127,000 for the West Pubnico project. The West Pubnico project also had a super low interest. So it wasn't just a grant, it was also a mega low interest loan.
Thank you, just for you guys so you know.
Which will be paid next year. Next year will be the last, this coming year will be the last payment.
That's important information. Thank you, Councillor Surratt. So we've had, oh, sorry, Councillor Donaldson, go ahead.
Yeah, Ellen, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the gas tax done through FCM too?
FCM led the gas tax discussion when Paul Martin and the Liberal government put that in place. The FCM was right in the middle of that. Yeah, and they're the ones that are pushing to have it doubled. So we had an FCM a gas tax doubling this year, and FCM's in the middle of that, and they just
what would that figure be for Argyle this year if it is doubled? 700,000 or so?
About $710,000.
So I guess the $8,000 membership fees are well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good point.
In my opinion.
Agreed. Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. And I was going to say exactly what Richard said there. I feel as though it makes us a part of a unified voice, that if we weren't part of them, we'd go nowhere as far as dealing with the Canadian municipalities, you know, the federal government, and also we could be out of luck on some stuff with in Nova Scotia. So I think it's money well spent on this one.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, raise your hand. Good, motion carried. Next, we have councillors' reports. Is there anybody who is willing who would like to share a report tonight? Councillor Donaldson. You're muted.
Not really a report, just the regular committee meetings that we're obligated or should attend, and been answering a lot of questions for constituents this last few weeks over different subjects, more than usual. I don't know, just because spring's in the air and people are out and about. And I'd just like to thank the group that done the Lower Argyle to Pubnico cleanup last night. They had a very, well, you hate to say a successful pickup because that means more garbage, but and I went for my daily walk this morning after they cleaned it up, 2 Tim Hortons cups already. So that's how quick it happens.
It does.
So,
thank you.
That's all I'd like to say.
Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. Again, I guess attended the meetings that we should be attending, and also spoke with TIR about concerns with some of the roads down here and hopefully getting some repairs done during the summer months. Also had some people questioning me about what's known as the old community hall, the old parish hall down here in Middle West Pubnico. And I also had a letter from the fire department, the West Pubnico Fire Department, with some concerns that they were expressing towards that property. I tell you, talking about quick response, and that I notified Hans about it yesterday, and which is our bylaw enforcement officer. He met me over at that property today and started an investigation. Also put up some tape in that and some no trespassing signs. So hopefully we will not have anyone going in there or around there for a while. And just a lot of concerns. People, it's unsightly premise right now, and also a lot of garbage and debris stored in that building that if it would ever catch fire, it could be a catastrophe for the homes and businesses around there. I know when we had the fire back on that property, it was quite a battle for the firefighters on scene to save a couple of the homes nearby. And there's some closer to this building that is still left standing that I'm afraid might be a problem even saving, could lose quite a few of the homes. Also spoke with our senior safety officer on a couple of occasions over the past month, and I believe she helped resolve those issues, and that's satisfactory. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bork.
Thank you. Me as well. I attended all the committee meetings I'm supposed to be attending. I really enjoyed the mapping project that Yasta showed us, and I think that's going to really promote our area. Maybe more of places that people don't really know about, so it's really promoting our area. The water shortage information session was really good yesterday too. It sort of guides us of what we probably have to do. I guess we're going to have further discussions on that. I am also dealing with illegal dumping. It's an ongoing thing. It's every year it's the same thing. I don't know why people dump garbage where they're not supposed to dump garbage. And I posted last night on Facebook. As I say, I'll repeat it again. We have a facility to bring our garbage. We have 2 yearly big garbage pickups, and we do have every 2 weeks garbage pickup. So there's no reason why garbage should be dumped into Oak Park Road or any road that nobody lives in. That's where usually all the garbage is put, is where people are not populated at. So that's my report.
Thank you. Frustrating, very frustrating.
Yeah.
Councillor Sonia.
Hi, I'd just like to add a little bit of frustration with TIR. I think councillors have the same frustrations I've got. I've reported some stuff and it's yet to be done. I don't know what the solution is for that. However, I also want to say that I've just served my first meeting with the Accessibility Committee, and I'm pleased to say that I think I'm really going to enjoy it. It's quite easy to understand. We all know what disability people have to go through, so it's an easy one for me, and I like the hour of 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm retired, so I think it fits me, whether I'm a good help for the committee or not, but it fits me. As far as the garbage, I feel everybody's pain, but I think I'd like to thank all the ones that are going to clean our ditches, and some are probably already going to, and they're volunteers, and they're concerned about their villages too and their neatness, and so thanks goes to them. And I also want to thank my fellow councillors for clarifying all these things for Gordon and I. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. No problem. Anybody else? Councillor Surratt.
Just very quickly, with the water situation, I just want to be sure the residents will know this year from talking to our REMO coordinator, there'll be no potable water that will be given out at the fire hall on Islands End District and on the Emirs Hill, and the rest of the municipality for that fact. It's very costly in that, so just want to be sure people know that this year, so there'll be no potable water given out. A couple of other things, the Yarmouth International Airport, we met, and I will say to all the councillors and the people listening that I feel really good about this Celtic Air. They're on the ball. I know Alain's got it in his report. Alain, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'll just say that I'm not kidding you guys. They're the real thing, and it is very positive, and I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. The other item, the Yarmouth Industrial Commission, Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission. We're finally looking at possibly getting somebody to take over the wharves and the school administration building, possibly. So we're working on. There's already kind of rules and regulations, but we're moving forward. Last night's meeting, we really clamped down and said we're having the facilitator coming to help us out, and hopefully, if everything goes right, we're not positive yet, but moving for a group to be taking over this part and then move forward. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Boudreau. You're good. Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm unmuted. One of my main concerns, a lot of residents are phoning me, messaging me and stuff. I hear it from all the councillors, it's garbage. And I'm really happy that we've got that nonprofit garbage pickup because our ditches are loaded with garbage. So I'm really happy about that. And like Ted mentioned, thank you goes out to the volunteers that do this garbage pickup. It's awesome. And also I've attended all my meetings, so everything's good on that front. Thanks.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Dantero, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to update on the West Pubnico, the wastewater treatment plant. The new dewatering system is there. They're just waiting to, I think, put out a contract or a tender for the piping and stuff to set it up. And I know speaking with Public Works and with Vaughan, I think a trailer is being purchased or picked up to when the waste or whatever's left over to be transported off site. So I'm looking forward to that and getting that dewatering system working, and hopefully that'll be our cure. So thank you.
Good. So I'm just going to mention a few things. You've all mentioned a lot of the meetings that I've attended as well. The Mariner Center, we've had several meetings that are ongoing, and that project continues to move forward. Not as fast as everybody would hope, but as fast as it can, I guess, is the best way to say that. Our priority sessions that we had for 2 days were amazing. We all got together with staff and council and had strong discussions and goal setting sessions, and that is also in the report later on in the staff report. But I just wanted to mention, I was happy to see that staff participated in that with us, and we came up with some really great goals. Splash Park had a meeting as well. They are thankful for the contribution that Argyle gave to their Splash Park, and they're continuing their efforts of looking for grants and continuing looking for funding and building their plan. So as they continue to progress, we will see more come out of exactly what that's going to look like. Last thing I'm going to mention, especially for Councillor Donaldson, we made a site visit at the Glenwood Park to kind of look at where things are going to land. So we're looking at I know you want to keep it kind of a little bit hush-hush, but there's 2 parts of the project that we're looking at jumping into first. So we're looking at the beach volleyball and possibly a boat launch. So those are the kind of the 2 first phases that we're looking at. It was interesting. And we had Hans come with us to kind of, because that's his specialty, and he was able to help us determine where things should go. So it's looking very positive, Councillor Donaldson, just so you know. Awesome. Okay, next we have, was there anybody else? I think everybody was covered. Good. Okay, next we have our Wardens Report. Do you want to speak on your report, or do you just want to let people ask questions? What would you like to do?
If they have any questions, I can answer.
Okay. Seeing none, we're just happy to have you here with us. Good. Next on the agenda, we have the staff report. So the staff report is, as usual, lengthy. I'm sure you've all had the opportunity to look at the staff report. It's the typical type of report. We see the same topics come up month after month. One of the things that came up in our priority session was once our plan is refined and put together, and those goals are well established and presented to council, we may want to think about how our agendas shift or change a little bit, or how the staff report may change. So I guess that's something to kind of keep in mind. Will our staff report still look like this? Will our agenda still look the same? Or are there things we may want to add in, or are there things we may want to take off? So those are I guess, things to think about. Do we have any questions or comments or anything anybody want to bring forward about the staff report? Councillor Surratt, I see you're unmuting.
You caught me. Can we have, or were you planning to get Alain to give a high level on the report, or what was the plan? I always like that.
Okay, yeah. I never know how much information you want and how much information is too much and not enough. And
about the others, but
I usually err on the side of going a little bit too deep, but I'm happy to hit some of the high levels topics for sure, if that's the will of council.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think Alain, I think, and Nicole, I think also for the people looking in, it's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I agree. I agree with you, and so off we go. And I will be brief. So the big question we often get is, what's the status of the admin building? The admin building, currently we have furniture and equipment has been ordered and will come in on time. I was recently in the building, and the floors have been grouted. They're in. I don't think they're in every place, but by this time they probably are. They had some adjustments they had to make for accessibility purposes, which delayed a little bit they had to go back a little bit and do some drywall, but that'll end up being just fine. And they've painted a lot of the rooms already. They're really moving quite quickly at this point. So the big ones to come in are the council desk, which is being constructed. and a local guy from the Bridgewater-Lunenburg area is constructing it. And there's also the front desk. So those two things are outstanding. They haven't been finished yet. But we're taking stock and we're coordinating our move, and we anticipate a move in mid-June. And Ailey, who has returned full-time effective yesterday, or I guess, yeah, we're Tuesday, yesterday, will be leading that particular project. So everything is within budget. We're still operating within budget, and we're confirming and solidifying the funding, especially gas tax, because we need permission, special permission to use it for this purpose. So we're working with Wild Salt and with the province on that. Also, I'll say at the same time, we're doing the storage facility in the back. So that'll look very much the same as our building. And the solar applications and everything, all that's underway. So everything is moving, you know, quite positively in that area. And will be, you know, my role will be kicking in with the grant and the debt. So that will come in very soon. Once substantial completion occurs, we'll be eligible for the FCM funding at that time, and only at that time. So the cash flow is still working well. Everything is, you know, we always have complications with these projects, but right now the headaches are getting smaller and smaller as things are getting completed. Strategic priority session was already mentioned. Not a lot. Iris Communications was hired by a bunch of municipalities to keep an eye on the fishing dispute and what's happening there, and to communicate on behalf of municipal councils. So that work is ongoing. The Mariner Center is the big one. We will be having an in-camera conversation about that because it has to do with negotiation with other two parties. But I will say that, you know, we've had presentations from project managers that give us the approximate size. You know, the number 38 was thrown out as a high number, but that was admittedly a very high number. Kind of an all-in, you know, if you say yes to a bunch of things and it takes 7 years to do, like, all sorts of assumptions. So you keep in mind, it's extremely difficult to estimate how big this project will be. But what is easier is to establish, okay, this far and no further. And at that point, you then adjust your project to meet your budget, right? So if you just want a bunch of things, well, you know what happens, right? The budget is the variable. So if you land on your budget and on your budget number or a relevant range, because we have partners here, then you're cooking with greases, I would say, because at that point you've all come to an agreement as to what you're able to afford or not. I will say that you know, this project will result in a tax increase. There's absolutely no other way that this gets done. So what that increase looks like, we don't know yet. Depends on the size of the project. But, you know, a 4 to 5 cent increase for the capital component alone is not outside of possibility. So that would be 5 cents, both commercial and residential, keeping in mind that there is an operational cost that could add to that. So this is a project that we really want to make sure that we're engaging with our community as we are developing our approach, because it has implications to our residents. And while I think it's one of those situations where you have to make a decision, like, are you going to grow or are you going to protect? And so protecting the tax rate and growing an expansion such as this, it's a tough decision, right? Like, and respectfully, it's yours, right? And so, you know, we will bring as much information as possible. And there's a lot of variability in what that increase could look like, because some of it depends on whether you're borrowing or not for the project. So if you're not borrowing, you're not incurring that much interest expense, etc. I promised myself I'd be brief. Oh, there you go. Off it goes. So the other project that we're going to be looking at this week is the Eelbrook Volunteer Fire Department. So tomorrow we do have a meeting with key personnel at the fire department, as well as the councillors that represent that particular fire district, along with their architect and planners and project managers. And so we're just going to take a look at the thing. A lot of uncertainty now in the construction side of things. Their budget is still, their expected cost is still over their budget by a significant amount. It would be unwise to go out to market if you know already that you're way out. So, some of that we just have to iron out and determine what that's going to look like. So we want to make sure that we work closely with Eelbrook Volunteer Department for a variety of reasons. Yes, it is their project, but at the same time, they may require project management or project support from the municipality. We're expecting volunteers to do much, right, with little. And I mean little in relation to time, right? There's no shortage of talent. It's the time, right? I mean, these guys are full-time and gals are full-time. And so, they're trying to do this on the corner of their desk, and that's a challenge. So we want to make sure that we can help in any way possible. And also, ultimately council's responsible for setting the rate, while the area rate is set by the public through area rate meetings. Ultimately that rate lands on you to approve. And so as responsible councillors, you want to make sure that the rate is reasonable and that the project fits. So I think that there's a couple of outstanding things from presentations past, like the heat pellet presentation. There is some updates on Sot registrations, which is for fines. We're moving very slowly but steadily in that direction so that we can do fining very quickly as opposed to doing it through courts. And water and drought. I mean, this is an ongoing process. We had a presentation yesterday from an expert in the field of water. It opened our eyes a little bit about, how best to serve our community without, and also protect taxpayers' dollars. They gave us kind of sobering information a little bit on the cost of doing a well as a municipality and having to follow some of the potable drinking water standards. Can be quite expensive, especially bringing in hydrologists, et cetera. So kind of put a damper on some of our planning, but hope is not lost. We'll find other ways to help our community here, because this is one of the big ones, and we'll have to find other ways to help our community. Again, just one final thought on that particular thing is, with drought and with this situation, all of the experts are in agreement. The best solution is an on-site solution, meaning at people's homes. Because even if we did public wells and provided non-drinkable water in imaginative ways, it still doesn't change the fact that people have to get in their truck, if they have a truck, get the water, if they have the bin, and put the bin somewhere on their property. Most people, will drop it in their well, which is not recommended. And so there's, if we can avoid all of that to happen and help people get there, that's a much better long-term solution. So our recommendations will be coming out as quickly as we can get them out, and they will include multiple layers of actions that council could consider. So in putting budget aside, we always had budget aside to address this issue. It's just how we spend that money might be different. And I respectfully will stop talking. And if you have any other questions or comments, I'm happy to answer the ones that I can.
Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Surratt.
This goes to the CAO. I had a couple of people ask me on the Mariner Center. They're very interested on the Mariner Center project. And they asked me if on 1 cent on the rate, if they had a $100,000 home, would that be a $10? Would that be $10 up on their bill?
Yes.
That's one cent.
$10 and change. Yeah.
$10 and change.
You could round it up to 11.
Very good.
Yeah. So a typical $100,000 home on a 5 cent increase in your taxes would be $50 a year. So that's per year, but it's $50 a year. So where the rate is like, oh, the rate is 5 cents. Oh, woo. in actuality, when you see some of the other increases that, and I don't mean to diminish the importance of being responsible with our tax rates. So please don't misunderstand. But when we see 15, 20, 25% increases in insurance, and we have seen that, and not just as a resident, all the residents have seen it, but we too pay insurance. You know, our fire departments are up 50%. You know, there's all of those costs that we're feeling that pain the same way as residents are. So we're going to do our best to manage that rate increase as best as possible. But I think, you know, we have to be realistic about the fact that our assessments really haven't increased that much over the years. So where assessments used to go up 3 or 4%, 2-3%, they're not now. So our residents have benefited from that rate not going, from the assessment not jumping as high as it typically does. There's two ways to calculate taxes, right? There's one is your increase in assessment, and the other is increase in rate. We always used to be pretty satisfied with ourselves that the rate hasn't changed, but the rate didn't change because our assessment rate increased enough that we were comfortable that we could manage within that space. So because of provincial policy limiting the way that we can generate income, there will come a point, and we've had this conversation 3, 4, or 5 years ago, where I projected out and said, look, if these continue to project this way and the expenses continue to project that way, at one point you're going to have to put the rate up. And so we've had some, you know, this year it will be a successful year financially because of deed transfer tax is a big driving factor. And some of the COVID estimates that we made were like way off. So we will take that into account moving forward, because, you know, that money will be used for a purpose. It's not, it'll either apply to next year's operations on the things that we didn't do, or we'll set it aside for capital projects that are very important to our residents. So yeah, I mean, I guess I mean, long answer to your question, Councillor Surratt, but I guess the answer is if somebody has a $200,000, you know, you have to double, right? And if it's 300,000, right? So it's 100,000 at this point is probably a little lower than average when you look at the assessment. So it might be better to think about it from a $200,000 perspective, yes, the assessments, especially in the last 12 months where we're really seeing a change in the way houses are valued. So anyway, don't ask the professional accountant an accounting question, I guess is the lesson that you might be learning here today.
Are there any other questions about the staff report? Okay, seeing none. We don't make a motion to move the staff report. I know I ask this every time. No, it's there for information. Okay. Next, we have for decision 13A. We have Pubnico community identity signs. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attachments with that. The first few attachments are information that kind of explain the project in prior years. There's a couple of attachments that are pictures, but basically what we're looking at is there are 2 signs in Pubnico that are coming at end of life. So it is now within the next 18 months, they have to be replaced, and it is our responsibility to pay for that replacement if we want to do so. And the cost of those signs is approximately $12,000 per sign. So we're looking at 2 signs at approximately $12,000. We have a suggested motion and recommendation, but I'd like to have some discussion around that. What are people thinking about this? Councillor Dantero.
I guess this subject was brought up to me, I don't know how many years ago, because of the sign starting to deteriorate and really not showcasing what the community was all about. It says oldest Acadian but region in North America, or whatever it says. But when I think about West Pubnico and the Acadian culture, and I'm just talking about West Pubnico because that's my district, or Lower West. I think about Dennis Point Wharf and the largest fishing port in Atlantic Canada, and so the fishing aspect, and of course we have the Acadian Village, and so there's a lot more than just what that sign has to say. And if you look everywhere you go here in the province, you see some of those signs, and some of them are really, really nice. and they kind of explain, you know, more in more detail what the community is all about. So I'm definitely all for this, you know, for this project. But I'd like to hear what the rest of the gang has to say too. So thank you.
Sounds good. Warden Muse.
In this sign, would we like is there a regulation on what can go on those signs? I'm wondering. Or if we replace, are we just replacing what's already there? Or we can a new sign can be designed. It's just an overlay is what they do. They put an overlay on the sign that's there.
Correct.
So, but there has to be some kind of regulations on what information can be on those signs through the department.
Okay.
Yes, I think you're limited in terms of how many words, etc. I'm really not familiar with the regulatory framework. We will get informed when we get there. But you know, there's a lot of different signs out there, a lot of beautiful scenic signs that don't seem to be a problem in other regions. But certainly, whatever we do, they would have to approve.
That's right. Yes, has to be approved. And who decides? Like, would we bring in the community to say this is what we'd like to see on there? I mean, it depicts their village. It depicts that area. And I think they should have something to say on what goes on there, for sure.
I agree.
But again, following what regulations say it can and cannot be on that sign.
Right. That's a really good point. So following regulations, but making sure we have input from public engagement from that community, because you're right, it is their sign. Councillor Saulnier.
Part of that signage would have a lot to do with our discussions at the Argyle or about moving forward and making sure we advertise every little corner of our region. So I'm all for it. And that's it, I guess.
That's a good point. Councillor Surratt. I see you, Glenn.
This one goes to Calvin or our CAO. Do you know, can you remember, Calvin, or if Alain was here when the sign was first put, if we did get any money from Acadian Affairs?
I believe it was provincially funded.
The first one.
Because they wanted to ensure that the communities that were being passed by new highways were being showcased on the highway. So I don't remember how far back it was, and I'm not. I think it may even predate me as your CAO, but I think it was in the early 2000s when it happened, and it was funded by them initially, but as part of the policy, is the replacement would be our responsibility. Now, because it is Acadian and Acadian driven, TIR won't pay, but Acadian Affairs may. So it would be you know, and that's part of the suggested motion that we reach out and ask the question, particularly with Congrès Mondial 2024, which is coming down the road. It would be, you know, it would be important, and perhaps even the design would incorporate that as well. That might be significant enough, but that would be up to the decision makers.
Thank you. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I as well am all for doing that sign over. It's getting kind of in hard looking shape at night and stuff like that. And when we're saying, I know we're talking about West Pubnico some, but I feel as though all the Pubnicos in that, and even the Argyles, you know, there's so much to show to people. I know sometimes when we're out driving, and all of a sudden you see a nice sign and you've got lots of time, you pull in and take a drive down just to see what's down there because of what you've seen on that sign. And I feel as though we've got so much more to showcase than what's actually out on that sign there now that we should possibly look into it, but by all means. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boer.
I agree, and I think all I have to say is we have to show off our community and represent all the area around here. So I'm all for it as well.
Good, thank you. Councillor Boudreau. You're muted, Councillor Boudreau.
I'm for it as well. I'm just wondering, who builds these signs? It sounds kind of expensive for a sign, $12,000. Question maybe for Ala. Is there a couple of companies that we can get, you know, quotes on?
So this would be done by the Department of Transportation because it has to meet their standard.
Oh, okay.
That's the cost of the sign. Now, I mean, you could save money if you made it a smaller sign, for instance, or if you didn't have such a big footprint, it might be cheaper. But those signs are quite large. I agree. It can appear costly. I mean, but you know, on the flip side, I thought the same thing. But then on the flip side, we know it's going to last between 15 and 17, 18 years. Yeah. So that's at least what it lasted the first time. So it, you know, when you look at it over the lifespan of the sign, it may feel a little less painful.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, thanks.
I believe they're made in Truro. I think it's a Truro sign shop that does the signs for the department, or they used to anyway.
Okay.
That is correct.
So are there any other comments? Anybody want to add anything else? So there is a suggested motion. Is there somebody willing to make that motion? Councillor Dantero? Do we have a seconder on the motion? Councillor Bork. So the motion is to approve a capital reserve contribution of $24,000 to purchase the 2 signs in the 2021-22 fiscal year and request funding support from Acadian Affairs for the cost of the signage. That is the motion. So are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next we have 13B. We have GSAR. So ground search and rescue. So this has been an ongoing topic on our agenda in the last few months. So tonight we're looking at basically a capital request. They had come and made a presentation regarding the issues they were having with their building. So their main issues were that they needed a new roof, that they need a new well, and that the east wall of their building was in pretty dire conditions. And they were able to go out and get some quotes, and we have those quotes in our information here. So having looked at all that and the money that was donated by Carl Storr, they've had some donations as well. Basically what we're looking at here is a recommendation to contribute $25,000 towards their capital requirements and consider a second contribution upon the provincial decision to fund or not, because that's another part. They're unsure yet if they're going to get any funding from the province or not. They've put in an application, but they haven't heard anything yet. They're checking, they're waiting and listening, but they haven't heard anything yet. And we would encourage the other 2 regional units to match our contribution. And having said that, I asked CAO Muse if he had discussed our potential motion with the other 2 CAOs, and he has. So the other 2 CAOs are aware of our possible motion tonight. So are there any questions, any debate, any conversation? Councillor Surratt.
First of all, usually I always like to see the other 2 units put money in before I vote on something. But you know what, on this particular group, I'm going to make a motion that we approve a capital contribution of $25,000 to be issued from the 2020-21 Operation Surplus Reserves, and that the 2021-22 budget include a contribution to the ground search and rescue.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder on that motion? Councillor Digdon. Good. Do we have any questions, any comments? Yes, CAO Muse.
Just to clarify what the motion means when it talks about operational surplus and all that. So we know we're having an operational surplus this year. Not a question. So basically what I'm saying is $25,000 of that surplus is going to go to capital reserve and is going to pay for that contribution if you vote in favor of this motion. So I just want to clarify. I know the language is a little technical.
Thank you. Councillor Digdon, did you want to add anything?
the only thing I want to add is they are a volunteer organization. They're one that you hope you never have to call, and that, or for your family member or for someone, and that Councillor Saunier worked closely with them this spring. He saw what kind of people they are. Their heart is into it 110%. Again, like I've said before, and that it's not a town thing. It's not a municipality of Argyll or municipality of Yarmouth. They are there for everyone. They also get called outside of their area. And I'm 110% behind this organization. They're trying their best for what they have to work with.
That's good. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one else, there's a motion on the floor. We have a seconder. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. I'm sure they will be very pleased with that. Next, we have 13C, Western Counties Regional Library. There are 2 attachments. The first attachment is information about the library, the programs they offer, and what they do and what they need. And then we have a request for decision. So let me see. So they're looking for an increase in funding from what we've given over the years. And there's a difference of $9,887 compared to what they've asked for in the past. Our CAO has provided a couple of recommendations. We can pass the motion, and we can provide the extra funding, or we can deny the funding because the municipality has not yet received its 1-year notice from the province for this funding increase. CAO Muse, is there anything, I guess I feel like I'm not explaining that one as well. Is there anything else that you would like to add or could add to that one?
Yes, very quickly I will. So first of all, my recommendation is not to increase funding for the Western Counties Regional Library. It's not because I don't value the time and energy and services that are provided by the Western Counties Regional Library. The reason why I'm recommending against it is because the province is supposed to lead a process that engages municipalities and the libraries across Nova Scotia to determine funding increases. And once that's done, they're supposed to write a 1-year letter, a letter giving us 1-year notice, all municipalities saying, look, the funding for libraries is going to increase by X, Y. You have 1 year to plan. Right. And so that's the memorandum of understanding that the NSFM that we are a member of signed with the province. The province has not done that. And so the request for the Western Counties Regional Library, though I'm sure is in good faith and done appropriately by the management of the Western Counties Regional Library, it does not follow our protocol. So my understanding is that the Western Library did get the provincial increase already, but because the province didn't give us notice this year, there's no municipal increase. So the library is asking voluntarily. I've asked across the municipalities that are in Western counties, and some will consider it and some will deny it. So I can't tell you exactly who will deny or who will accept, but I know that recommendations are on both sides. I've presented to council 2 options. Following my recommendation, there is a motion, and if council chooses to waive formality, which is what I'm saying that the province didn't follow a format. If you choose to waive formality, you may do so as a council, and the motion is included if that's your choice.
Thank you. Councillor Bork.
Thank you. A question. So we'll be getting a year's notice from now or for next year's budget. So the increase will be for next year, for sure.
It's I'm expecting to receive a 1-year notice letter like very, very soon for next year's budget, not for the one that we're about to pass a budget for. So that would be effective April 1st, 2022.
Right. And I understand that even though that the municipalities do deny, if they do deny the funding increase, their projects will be still going on as projected, I guess, yeah.
I can't comment on whether the Western Counties Library budgeted this increase as part of their operations. I suspect that I'm not sure that they would have done that.
Yeah.
I suspect that the operations will be as normal, but
right.
I can't confirm that. I know that, you know, they're like any other organization, right? They have challenges, just like
right.
and others.
Just like everybody else.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So if nobody else wants to speak on it, I would like to make the motion that you did recommend. Is it too early? Did anybody else want to speak on that before I make a motion?
I think the warden had his hand up. Did you want to say something, Warden Hughes?
Well, just that, you know, I mean, they're asking for, how much was it? 9,000, and there's quite a few municipalities, and that could make a big difference in their budget if everybody was to deny that, you know. I'm not sure if this is for projects or, you know, like you were saying, CR Muse. I'm not sure if this will affect their operations or if this extra was for different projects. I really don't know what it was for, but obviously they asked for money for a reason. I know, being on the board before, it's difficult sometimes for them to operate with the money that they have, you know, like it's, so anyway, I still think though we should probably follow protocol as far as we should have received this, and it's kind of unfortunate that we didn't receive this if they knew that this was going to happen. If they got an increase from the province, you would have thought that they would have the province would have given us the year notice that this was going to happen. They were going to give more, and that this was going to happen. But anyway, that's all I had to say.
Okay. Was there anybody else who wanted to speak on it? Councillor Surratt.
I'd like to throw out this question to all the councillors. Are we penalizing the wrong people because someone is pissed off at the government? That's my only comment. Thank you.
Who would be pissed off at the government?
Our CAO.
That's I don't know how to answer that question. I work with the province every day, so.
You seem to be upset, and I'm not saying you're wrong. You seem to be upset because the protocol wasn't followed, and I understand. Believe me, I do understand. And this should have been sent out to us by the government. They overstepped their boundaries. They didn't do it. But I'll go by what Danny said. It made me think. If we've had 6 or 7 that are funding them, you know, do we penalize them because somebody's pissed off because the government didn't do their job? I guess maybe not the CEO, maybe I jumped too quick here, but maybe because we are, or NSFM is pissed off, do we penalize the library because of that? Just something to think about. I know there'll be a motion is seconded, and that's I just want people to think of. Thank you.
Councillor Bohr.
Okay, just on that, if the province had the conversation with the libraries, and they want the municipalities to increase their funding, why wasn't the municipalities involved in the discussions? So that's kind of, you know, they're putting it off on us. They're loading us with the increase, right? So they're taking it off their books and they're putting it on our books. That's how I see it. So I think we should have been in the discussions with them.
It's a great point.
That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, just a point to point out that we talked about it earlier, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, we pay into that organization to negotiate with the province for protocols on how to do things. And if the province is going to overlook that and come to do something directly like this, I don't understand why we're even talking about it. I believe we should automatically ask for the 1 year notice, because that's already been negotiated in the past. So it shouldn't even be a discussion tonight. It should just say, look, follow protocol. We'll probably do it next year. We'll have to. But I mean, they load the school board on us. They load the RCMP and Justice. They just throw numbers at us. I don't know if they just feel they can do it with everything. So, I mean, let's get this motion going that Kathy made and get this over with. And I use the library probably as much as anybody. Like, I belong to the Halifax Library. I listen to hundreds of audiobooks a year. Like, I support the library. But to not follow protocol can become quite serious if you continue to let it go, in my opinion.
Right. I think part of it is, I think our CAO provides us our information. I don't think this is a personal opinion of our CAOs to say deny. I think it's the process, and he says these are the options. And so to say like that he's pissed off, I'm not sure if that's the right direction we need to take. I think it's more, here are our options. And just as Councillor Donaldson said, they didn't follow the process. So why would we say, okay, let's do it? Because the next time they're just going to not follow the process for something else and for something else and for something else. And we see that happening all the time. So that's kind of the way I look at it as well. CAO Muse, sorry, go ahead.
One of the biggest concerns and complaints and conversations that we have with elected officials, not just here, but across Nova Scotia, is the cost of government download. Mm-hmm. And we have seen many, many occasions where we have had really not any say and had to take on all sorts of different programs. And that's why there's a process in place to give us some sense that we can in some way prepare for this. I have no opinion on the nature of the contribution, as you would say. But you know, it's why I provided you with two potential motions. One is, if you wanted to waive formality, it is entirely your right as a voting group to make that decision. As the person who you've hired to protect your pockets, my recommendation is to deny for that reason and that reason only.
Thank you. Councillor Sonia.
I think we've got to keep in mind our taxpayers too. We're talking about hiking the tax rate, and at the same time, we're talking about possibility of ignoring protocol here for someone else. So I think we've got to put that into the factor.
Great.
Thank you.
Councillor Bork, was there somebody else who wanted to speak on it? Councillor Digdon.
I was just going to say question on the motion.
Okay, so Councillor Bork has a motion on the floor. Did we have a seconder on that?
Oh, we didn't have a seconder?
I don't think we did, because Councillor Bork started to make the motion.
I started to make the motion, but I never said what the motion was.
Which motion would you like to make, Councillor Bork?
I'd like to make the motion that we deny the request for funding as the municipality has not received its 1 year notice from the province of Nova Scotia respecting funding increases.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder on that? Councillor Donaldson, you're willing to second that?
Yes, I'll second that. Now we can discuss the motion.
Yes, you're right. So are there any questions or concerns or discussion about the motion?
Question on the motion.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. All right, next we have our litter cleanup. So you have the information provided for you. So for the new councillors, We used to do our litter cleanup program as a fundraiser for our local nonprofit organizations. So they would get $200 for a kilometer of cleanup. So organizations apply for this. So they come forward and they apply to have a certain set of kilometers. Last year, we didn't do it because of COVID. So before we would have 2 cleanups, one in the spring and one in the fall. And last year we had none. And as we heard earlier, we're really seeing that in our communities. Our ditches are pretty full. So we're looking to restart that program again. Our CAO has recommended, so in the past, we have some figures here. CAO said he had initially set an amount of $14,000 for 65 kilometers of ditches. Last year we budgeted $22,000, but that was for 2 cleanups. So we're looking at possibly doing $18,000 this year for 88 kilometers of ditches, $200 a kilometer for the community groups. I'm pretty sure this is Warden Muse. Did you have? Yep.
I was just going to make a motion.
Perfect.
Approve an operational contribution of $18,000 towards a community litter pickup program for 2021-22.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Donaldson, were you going to second that?
Yes, I'll second it. And I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question for the CAO. When this program was started, was it before your time, or did it start since you've been here?
It started, I want to say, your best guess, probably 2011, 2010, 2012.
Yeah, because I remember a lobbying for it when it was the first became an idea, right? And then it's been so successful. I'm glad to see we're going to continue it. That's all I want to say. Question?
Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. Just a question for a CAO. Is it Kim that is the contact for this program if people want to get in contact with someone in the municipal office?
Yes, Kim is the contact.
Okay.
Contact information has been posted on our social media, and if anybody has any issues or questions, and if you're not sure if you can get a hold of Kim for whatever reason, we will, if you send something to us, we'll make sure Kim gets it.
Just making sure I'm sending out the accolades to the right people, right person. I had two people tell me this week how nice and how sweet she is to talk with on the telephone, and that she's really, really very beneficial to talk with and explain to them what goes on and how it's done. So kudos to Kim.
If she's not watching, I'll pass it along. She has a passion for garbage.
Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment or a question on that? Okay, seeing none, questions been called. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. 13E, capital budget. So for this one, our capital budget there's a draft form that's that our CAO has been, finance department has been working on. But there are a couple of items maintenance wise that we need to pass because of pricing. We want to secure the best pricing possible. And that means we should, it would be beneficial if we pass those sooner rather than later. So the CAO has recommended that we authorize the purchase now to protect the price quoted and include $27,000 in the capital reserve for approval when the capital reserve budget is completed. Is there anything else, CAO, that I need to mention about that?
Well, at the risk of people thinking at the risk of people thinking that I came up with this recommendation, people don't know me to be, people know me not to be that handy with tractors and zero turns. So the recommendation did flow from Wayne and Louis, our maintenance people. One of them is end of life, and the other is being traded in a fairly decent trade-in, approximately $9,000. They were purchased not that long ago, but they're functionally limited. So this will eliminate some of the issues that they've been having with the equipment. The useful life of these, the John Deere tractor will have a useful life of, you know it probably better than I mean, depending on how well you handle it and whether it's inside in the winter, you know, 8 to 12 years, 8, 10 years. The Toro, perhaps a little less, just smaller parts, smaller everything, but presumably could be close to the same useful life. So we don't expect major purchases at this point for the foreseeable future, though I could be proven wrong by our maintenance people if things fail. So this is recommended to do now because we do have a price, and with COVID and two things are happening. COVID is affecting prices, and COVID is affecting inventories, local inventories. Like they're just coming off the shelf.
Thank you. Councillor Dantero?
Well, it's like everything else. If you want to make, if you want to do a good job, you need good equipment, and you know, old equipment is inaccessible because of breakdowns and all that. If we need new equipment, and this is what's recommended, I'll make the motion that we purchase the equipment that was just talked about. So,
thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Sonia, you're seconding that motion? Okay. Do we have any questions or comments on that motion? Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. And that John Deere, that will be purchased in Yarmouth County? The Yarmouth County dealer?
I think that the John Deere is out of, I think it's a Clare dealership. They may be getting their product out of the Valley. And I know that the Toro is definitely a Yarmouth company that is selling that. Yeah, I'm more comfortable. I'm confident about the Toro. The John Deere, I know it's a connection through, and again, because of inventory, right? Just
asking. I'm a firm supporter of trying to buy local as much as we can and that, right. But I know availability and that is down now on a lot of tractors.
I will just add one little thing on that point is because the threshold is lower than our tender, Louis and his team, they priced local only. So if the product wasn't available locally and they got a price, it was as local could be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Next we have for discussion. So the first item for discussion is the fire service registration policy. So there is a policy that has been put together for our fire departments for registration purposes. Now, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to read this draft policy or not, but what we're waiting, the reason it's on there for discussion is because we're kind of waiting to have feedback from the fire departments to see how they feel about the policy, to see kind of if there's anything they're going to want to add, if there's how basically they want us to proceed with this policy. So we can open this up for discussion if there's anybody on council that would like to comment on this. Yes, Councillor Surratt.
This question goes to Alain. Alain, did we have a policy like this before? Or this is new?
The fire departments always had to register. Yeah. And however, it was really kind of like a one-pager, very little information provided, and really didn't meet the expectations of municipalities that require information around how they actually deliver services, because different fire departments do different things, right? So the policy was developed by AMA, Association of Municipal Administrators, but it was in collaboration with some of the fire organizations, provincial fire organizations. It's a lot more complex. Mm-hmm. And the feedback we're getting now is that, you know, some of it seems a little wow, right? So, you know, we're certainly going to take all of those comments seriously and take a look at what it might mean for our policy.
Thank you, Alain. That's well put together. I've read it a couple of times. Well put together. Thank you.
Councillor Sonia.
Water and ice rescue. Are firemen trained for that? It's on page 6. I read it before. Now, so water rescue is the biggest one for me.
So
page 4, Councillor?
It's
6.
Page 6.
And it's item 6. So his question is, our fire departments, do they have training in water and ice rescue? And I think that that's part of what we're trying to figure out, right? Who has what training? Because right now we just don't know. We really, I guess we have an idea of some of the training that some of the departments have, but we really don't have an accurate like spreadsheet of who can do what for each department. So I think that's the backbone of this, is trying to figure out what department has what training.
Water rescue is a big deal in the sense that it's extremely dangerous even for us fishermen. I was involved years ago, 30 years ago or more. I think Gordon might even remember. It's a long story, but we were ill-equipped big time, and the rescue failed. We survived, but I recall the emotions of the day was especially the equipment, and there's a huge expense there if you have to be well equipped to do water rescue. You're talking about Zodiacs, you're talking about a huge expense. I just wanted to mention that because there's a lot of weather out there.
Right.
Yeah. If I may, Matt.
Yes.
So I want to be clear that these checklists, they're to indicate what they're trained for and what they're capable of doing, but it doesn't mean they have to check every box. So disqualify them as a service provider. It's just, it's done for a variety of reasons. It's almost in one way, it's like, okay, well, it makes the fire departments think about the things that they might be trained for or not trained for. And perhaps it will identify a gap where they're like, hey, no, we really have to be trained in high angle rescue, which I'm really not familiar with what that is exactly. But, you know, we might, you know, we've had 4 or 5 incidents that we had to bring in a specialist for that. I know discussions have been had around hazmat because I think the only hazmat service is, well, I think it's the town of Yarmouth, but it may not even be there. I think there's another location that is even further away, and Glenn's shaking his head, Guy's shaking his head. So I think it used to be the town that could do it, but I don't think they can anymore. So this has been an issue raised by some of our volunteers. It's like, so who does it then? So again, and these are conversations that we have probably once a year when the budget numbers come out, you know, around equipment and training. So yeah, so it's a really good question. It's an important question to ask, Councillor. You know, we want to get this right, and it can be, these policies can be intimidating. You know, we're talking about volunteers are just, they're going out there, they're doing their best, and we just want to protect us, and we want to protect them, and we want to make sure we get it right. So we won't be bringing this for approval until we get sufficient feedback from them. Yeah,
the reason I asked the question is because the expense of the equipment needed and the amount of training that would also be needed, it's almost an entity by itself. You know, that's why, and not to say it's not needed. That's not my point.
Anybody else? Any other comments on that? Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. I looked over the policy a couple of times, being a volunteer firefighter myself. There's a lot of good points I see in that policy, by all means. What I'd like to possibly see, if our CAO would like to make a presentation to the mutual aid volunteer departments that are in mutual aid around here some evening, and talk to them about it and see what they think of it, and go over, give them, you know, show them the policy, send them the policy a week or 2 in advance, and then go to a meeting with them some evening and listen to what that they have to say. Because there is some of the policy that if for volunteers and that, and for the people that has to do filling them all out, and that could be maybe a bit intimidating and that. So just, you know, they are our backbone. It's as simple as that. When it comes to and we say fire departments, but nowadays they do so much more than fight fires, that we want to definitely keep, you know, on their good graces. And that's my opinion.
Thank you.
We will make a note, if that's the will of council, certainly I'll make a note of that, and we will arrange a presentation with mutual aid or through the fire commission or wherever the best avenue is to have a conversation about it.
Okay, Warden Muse.
Yeah, I know, and what Councillor Digdon said. I mean, our volunteer fire departments are the backbone. They do a lot of work, you know, that's necessary. But I think it's important to have the policy so that, I mean, there's so many smaller maybe, or maybe not just smaller, but fire departments that may not have the training to do some of these things, but they might try to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's always better to make sure that if they say they have, that's what they're going to do, to make sure that they're trained in doing that. And I think that's important, because there's a lot of training out there for firefighters, but not everyone wants to follow these. And if you're not trained properly, you can put yourself and other people in harm's way as well. And I think it's important to make sure that our firefighters, even though they're volunteers, are trained to do what they are supposed to do.
Right. Thank you. And as memberships change in fire departments, people move on, people come in, you know, sometimes there are gaps in the training, and departments may not even be aware. So it's kind of a way to be able to determine for fire departments who can do what, I guess. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Councillor Digdon, yeah.
Thank you. And I agree with that 100%, but I just don't want them to think it's something that we as a council are going to force onto them without their input into it. That's why I was, you know, saying that let's meet them, make a presentation to them, you know, let them go over it. Can we make it better for you? Can we help you? And go from there. Use it as a tool.
Right.
You know.
Do other councillors wish, would that be the wish of other councillors to have somebody make a presentation to the fire departments? Can I have consensus, a thumbs up consensus? Okay, sounds good. So I think CAO Muse, we've had pretty much everybody say that they think it's a good idea to have somebody present to this policy to the fire departments, explain it, kind of the reasoning for this and why we're doing this, and help them through the process of possibly if they need help filling things out, or, you know, determining their levels of training as well. Councillor Surratt?
Just a suggestion, if that would work, where the Fire Association meets every 2 months, that might be a great place because all the fire chiefs are there, you know, and yeah, just a suggestion. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. I'll likely engage John in the discussions and I'll also reach out to AMA and ask them if there's additional resources they might provide. So with Zoom, we can always bring in an expert on this, and so it, you know, I'll navigate that. We'll get going on it and make sure the fire departments are heard. Some of the questions they might ask, you know, we may need to get an answer from outside of our community.
Right.
And make that happen.
For sure. Okay, thank you. We're good to move on. Okay. The next one, 14B, is Equipe Alpha. So if we look at, we received a letter from Equipe Alpha, and I guess to summarize, they're looking for a place. So they're interested in our current municipal building when we move into the new municipal building, and they're interested in renting a space. However, the space does need some, I don't know if the word is renovation, but would need some accessibility work, because that's part of the reason that we're moving out, is because it needs some work around accessibility. So they are looking for possibility to rent some space and looking to have some accessibility renovations made. And there is a question on, would we be interested in doing that? So I guess this it's on there for discussion. So I'd like to hear, we really haven't had a whole lot of conversation around what we're doing with the, I say old municipal building, but the building we're in now. What are our thoughts on that? Were we thinking about renting? Were we thinking about selling? We really haven't had a conversation about that. So I'm going to open up the floor to for discussion. Councillor Donaldson.
I'll say this, I've said it before from day one. I've always been in favor of selling it from day one. I will never change my mind on that, no matter who wants it and for what reason. I don't think we should be in that business. So that's my stand from now until we make a decision.
Thank you.
So I will be speaking no more on the issue.
We know where you stand. Councillor Surratt.
I'd like to agree, just totally agree with Councillor Donaldson. Great point, Richard. I don't believe we're in the business of renting. I think a couple of things. If other people are, you know, if one group wants to move out, they don't have enough room from where they're at, emptying the building by 3 others coming out. You know, it's none of my business anyhow, but I'm saying, you know, I want to empty a building just to put somebody in ours. I don't think we should be in the business of renting, like Richard said, and I think there's enough private sectors out there, and I really believe with the staff and our strategic session meetings and talking to staff and that, and it seems they are overloaded with work. This will put some more on them, and the CEO knows. I know, Alain, you're the one that knows what they've got to do. So it's not really any of my business in one sense, but I'm poking my nose in there because I heard them. But really, like Richard, let's keep our nose clear. Let's set up. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Warden Muse?
I think my first choice definitely would be to sell the building. That would be my first choice. But we don't know if we're going to be stuck with that building because it's not selling, then to me, it would make sense to have someone in there if we could. The only thing with doing that is they want that long term. So if we make this decision, we're not going to be able to put that building for sale, right? But I'm also a little worried about whether we're going to be stuck with that, and that's going to be an expense. Whether we rent it or we don't, there's going to be an expense in maintaining that building. We can't just let it go. We thought at one point that there was somebody interested in that building, and I think the fact that we're behind and whatever, and they've decided to do something else themselves. But have we had any other kind of interest or somebody show any interest at all in that building other than that one firm that was looking a couple of years ago? Did we ever have anybody else that may be a potential as well? And that would be the CAO, CEO. Okay.
The quick answer is no, but we have not advertised that it was available for sale either. So right. You know, I think proper thing if the municipal council wishes to part ways with this building, you know, the best way to do that is to test the market and to list it, right? So we haven't received any inquiries. We receive a lot of questions about what is your plan, but it's not like what is your plan and I have a mortgage waiting for you, more out of curiosity than that I've heard anyway.
It is.
And I reiterate, we never actually advertised what we were going to do with it, right?
No, because that's some of the questions that I get as well. Well, what are you going to do with the building? And I think a lot of people are more worried that we're either going to tear it down or, you know what I mean? Like there's some people that don't think maybe that building should be torn down. But if we sell, we'd have to be a little careful in who we sell to because of the neighbors. We just don't want just anything going in there. Would it make good apartments? I don't know, you know, something like that. But once you sell it, you lose control of what's going to happen with that. That's one thing. And we do have some very close neighbors that I can see would have a great concern over that, because again, that was something that was brought up to me before, and this was a couple of years ago when we started talking about building. That was some of the concerns that I heard from some of the people from that live very, very close to that. So anyway, I know, but to me, selling is probably my choice. But I'm afraid that if we're going to get stuck with it, then let's make use of what we can. But it's a decision that we don't know. If we rent it, then we're getting ourselves out of selling it. And if we don't rent it and it doesn't sell, we're stuck. So it's a hard decision to make for sure.
Councillor Sonia, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah. Can we control who we sell it to?
I would think.
Okay, so
right,
but we can't control if they decide to sell.
Right.
That's a great point.
So selling is definitely the way I would go as well. You know, I mean, you don't want to sell it and all of a sudden you got a paid ball outfit in there, right? So I agree with just about everything that's being said, because I think if you do sell it, there's a chance it might be sold again and you got no control over that.
Councillor Boudreau, do you want to add something? Sorry. Councillor Boudreau, did you want to say something?
Yes.
Okay, your hand's up.
What's the appraised value of that building? Do you know, Alain?
I do. Have to double check it. So, and keep in mind that it was probably about 3 years ago or 2 years ago when it was done. So I think it's probably higher in today's age, but it was between $200,000 and $300,000. I believe it was around 240,000, but I can get the actual figure for you probably before the end of this meeting, if not before the end of this discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Good question. Councillor Dantero?
Concerning the ask from EQIP, Alto, whatever, they talked about accessibility. Well, we're moving out of the building because of no accessibility. So I think that kind of, if they want us to make the building accessible, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. So I think that pretty much, finishes that story. So, anyway.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Bigden.
Thank you. I also would like to see the building sold. Having said that, the market's supposed to be hot out there right now.
Yes.
And this letter may be a selling point for somebody in the private sector wanting to come in, because these people are looking for a place long term. So it may be a selling point for them, or for us. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but I'd like to see it sold. If not, we're getting into a whole lot more than what we should be getting into, as far as I'm concerned. My personal opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CEO Muse.
The appraisal was done in 2018. It was $240,000. So that was in 2018. I have from a financial perspective, I have concerns, because we wouldn't make both levels accessible. We'd only have to make one. So that reduces the cost, because otherwise it's an elevator or it's something a lot more complicated. But you can do some pretty innovative things if you're only going up one level. You would have to construct bathrooms on the top level as well. All these things, you wouldn't do unless you had federal or provincial funding or both. I am reminded of my old life as an auditor, and there were a group of nonprofit organizations that required a place to stay, and they couldn't own the asset outright. And so I imagine it's very similar in this circumstance. So what they did was they created a nonprofit organization called La Maison Acadienne. And the Maison Acadienne received funding, or however it was funded, was able to purchase a home on 54 Queen Street in Dartmouth. And it housed multiple Francophone organizations. And so they didn't own it directly, but indirectly they owned it. And so they were able to get funding and all these things to do that. And so, you know, it's possible that you could do both. In fact, you could accommodate the request, not by renting, but by arranging a sale. Now, to arrange a sale to a nonprofit organization, you know what that might mean. It means that you might sell it at or below market, as opposed to when you go out to private industry, you must sell at market. So the other thing that it does, if that is in your interest, and I'm not suggesting that, you know, we don't know exactly what this looks like just yet, but I am reminded of that arrangement, and that arrangement, you know, seemed to work for a multitude of Francophone organizations in the center of Halifax. And if the municipality, if there were issues with the building, it wouldn't be theirs to deal with anymore because they don't own it anymore. But you would be, you know, presumably comfortable with the buyer, and you could, at your option, if you wished it to be, if you thought it was important, you could contribute to a nonprofit organization if it needed something at the time that it needed something. So if you're concerned with the community aspect of it, because this is almost like a community request, right? It's a bunch of nonprofits looking for another place. So financially, really, you know, if you look at it squarely from a financial perspective, it's an easy decision, right? But if you're looking at it from a community, you know, protecting a community service or supporting a community organization like you did GSAR or others, then you might consider a different path, one that isn't rental, one that is sale, but that it would be something that they would have to figure out on their end and come back to you with. So that's why I said the issue is complicated, and you know, I managed to complicate it a bit more. So,
Warden Muse.
There are 4 organizations that are looking to move in, right? Is that something that's been discussed, that maybe there would be a way for them, because of the organizations that they are, that maybe they could get funding to buy the building themselves?
It's possible. It's not part of their regular funding. I know that for sure. No. I'm not sure if they could actually own it outright. When I mentioned the fact that the municipal council really, you know, informally was thinking sale rather than rent, that didn't appear to be an option that was available to them. But I could be wrong. I mean, I think it might be better to have a conversation with them and try to determine what their needs are, if that's in your interest. But if there is zero interest in rent and zero interest in selling other than to private market, then there's no discussion, right? So from my perspective, I'd like to know, like, how far do you want me to go with this ultimately? Like, I've heard you that it sounds like you want to sell, and I think that was the majority. And so they need to know that, right? They need to know that earlier rather than later. But then whether you want to do something else is up to you.
Councillor Donaldson.
Okay, I'm not going to be swayed, Ellen, but I would like to see when the last person goes out through the door and gets hit in the backside by the door, stick a sign in the ground. So
I think, I mean, just kind of trying to gauge, it seems like consensus is that people would like for us to sell. I feel pretty confident in saying that is what we see. And I think that Councillor Surratt made a good point, because by selling, right, we're done. And it alleviates some of that extra work and extra stress for staff, and there's reasons that we're not staying here in that building. There are multiple reasons, and it's why we're going to a new building. And do we really want to worry about making it accessible and worry about making bathrooms and worry about all those things? And although those community groups would be amazing people to rent it, I just don't feel like this council wants to be in the business of renting. If I'm wrong, please somebody say, but that seems to be the feeling that I'm having tonight by everybody's comments. Councillor Surratt.
I'll add that would a motion be appropriate right now?
I think if your intention is to sell this building and you're confident that you're not going to dissuade from that, a motion would be fantastic, because then we would start the ball rolling. We would tell people what we're doing and we're selling it, and this is what we're doing, and we'll come back to you with, hey, this is how we're going to sell it, and these are the parameters around how we're going to sell it. And look, and these organizations might organize themselves and put in an offer to buy. I don't know. So yeah, I would totally, yes, if council wants to do that, it should do that by motion. And if they're comfortable doing it now, they can do it now.
I would like to make a motion that we engage staff into preparing a sale of the administration building. Not the new one, obviously. The old administration building. The old administration building. And, I know I'll put my foot in my mouth, and staff to prepare and to bring it to fruition. I don't have the word, sorry.
Start the process.
Thank you, Nicole.
Right. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burke, you want to second that motion? Any other discussion on that motion? Councillor Sonia.
I just want to remind council that we should be mindful who we sell to because of the neighboring community.
Right.
That's all.
Yep. Councillor Boudreau? You're muted.
Just a comment. Yesterday on the news, they had the Tuscan Church on CBC, and they had quite a bit of potential buyers from what they were saying. So I'm confident that we can sell this building.
Mm-hmm.
Just my my opinion, I guess.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, I believe with the municipal bylaws for planning bylaws for that part, or for all of tax as far as that goes, is pretty restrictive for what can be done there. So I don't think there's a lot to worry about. The neighbors have a lot to worry about. I mean, you're not going to bring any kind of industry to that building, or so. Yeah, the most it could be institutional or apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So neighbors can't control who sells what. I mean, or nothing would get sold in towns or anywhere. Like if the neighbors decided who could sell and what they could sell, the system wouldn't work.
Okay.
Question?
Question's been called. Do we have another comment? Councillor Surratt. Yep, we do.
Should there be a starting bid price? Should we have a starting price, Alain, or do you require that?
Look, my recommendation to you will be that you're going to list it. You're going to list it on real estate. So they'll be the ones that establish the price. We will say that there will be conditions on the sale. So that's not uncommon to Councillor Sonia's point. Like we can put conditions, we can say that, you know, and we can work with the real estate agents that are interested. So we'll reach out to the local real estate agencies, plural, and see what can be negotiated or what can be arranged. It's difficult for us to pick one, you know, so they all have different, you know, attributes. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, we'll let them establish what they think the price is based on the appraisal and based on market.
Okay. Councillor Dantero, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I guess we've heard, you know, 275 Main. So now what's our civic address here? It's Courthouse Road. What is it? What's the number?
27.
Well, there you go. So this is the sale of 27 Courthouse Road. Just to clarify.
Thank you, Galvin.
Yep, that's a good point. Councillor Digdon, did you have something you wanted to add? I thought I saw your hand up. Nope. Was there anybody else? Okay. Question's been called. Sorry. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. So not the last, but one of the last things, we have correspondence and information. The first one is the Yarmouth County Trail Development Association final report. They've provided a report for us. I'm not going to go through the report. 15B is municipal affairs acknowledgement. So this is just a letter that they acknowledged our civic address signage bylaw. And then there is 15C, Municipality of Barrington Letter of Concern. So this is regarding Bill 47 with regards to the accessibility and the province wanting, again, we talked about downloading earlier, the province wanting us to be able to provide some funding for helping businesses or become accessible, because we know that that's coming very soon. Any questions or comments on any of those? Okay, we're going to move on. 16, financial requests. I don't see any financial requests. 17 is agenda topics for next meeting. Notice of motion by councillors. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring forward? Okay, seeing, yes, Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. The only thing on financial requests, I had a couple to bring in this evening, but I'm also waiting for a couple of more. So I just thought I'd bring them in all next meeting or so, put them all together. Thank you. In case the people are wondering why isn't Digdon bringing in their requests tonight, that's why Digdon's not bringing them in tonight.
Right. Councillor Surratt.
I had a financial request, but I see it's not there, so I'll talk to Laurie tomorrow to see what happened. I did bring it in a couple of weeks ago, so I'll talk to Laurie tomorrow. Thank you.
I know for me, we have to wait for the next budget. Mine, like I have no budget meeting, right? That's probably
right. I thought since we were April the 1st, it was in a new year that it was okay. Sorry.
That is probably why.
We just have to approve the district community grant line item, right? And
so,
then we usually approve them all.
Yeah.
Didn't I bring that up at the end of the last meeting to make a special request to bring that line item forward before we had to wait for the whole budget to get done and it got shouted down?
Yes, you did.
That would be an accurate statement, yes.
Thanks for bringing that again. All right, question period. Were there any questions? Were there any questions on Facebook Live?
There were comments on, so when we were discussing the fire registration policy, Kentville is the closest for hazmat. That was from Paul Gould. So wondering how close it was. I knew it was Valley, but I couldn't remember. Specialty services are expenses of inquiry, special training. Paul just confirming what Councillor Saunier said. And the municipality's previous policy, Article C08, does make reference to registration. We do have another fire policy. That's what his reference is to that. And there were no questions, only comments.
Okay. All right, so the next item is our in-camera portion. So we need a motion to go in camera. Thank you, Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Digdon. All those in favor of going in camera, raise your hand. Contrary? Passed. Thank you. So we're going to go into camera.